This project is a coaster, and it's a design that I have used before. It's inspired by a stained glass window that I saw in Europe. And the interesting thing that I wanted to share in this video was really just these very small detail, almost mini rosettes really, on the outside here. And you'll notice I'm zoomed in quite a bit more. I got the camera even closer so I can get zoomed in, and I'll do my best to keep in frame since it's so tight. There's a very small window of viewability here, but in some regard there's nothing really too interesting or unique about these chips. It's really just the size of them that they're simple chips, so in that regard they're easy, they're simple to carve, and they're being small requires very light pressure. It's not hard to get the knife in there, but there is very little room for error. If usually for a more normal size chip, even what we might think of as a small chip in most designs, if you miss your mark or your line or whatever by a millimeter or half a millimeter, it's probably not going to be too noticeable, not going to be too big of a deal. But when your chips themselves that you're removing are only a millimeter wide or long, or whatever the dimension is here, then when you miss by a millimeter, it becomes a lot more substantial, a lot more visible. So definitely just trying to be as precise as possible in removing these chips. And as you'll see here, as I remove this section, there's this uncarved ring that goes around this rosette, and it goes right up against these medium, kind of fairly large relative to the project, pretty big chips. And I, on a couple of these, was not as precise or careful as I should have been as I was removing these, and I ended up removing a little bit of the uncarved surface there. And so now as I come in and carve the rosettes themselves, these little things, I need to kind of adjust for that, because again, with so little wood to work with, any small deviations become kind of magnified, more obvious. And that includes this ring, which is supposed to be all in even thickness all the way around. If one section of it is, like I said, half a millimeter off, that's half of the thickness. This whole thing is probably a millimeter wide at the most, and so I really can't afford to have it be off by half a millimeter. So I prioritized the ring itself, and obviously if I've removed too much wood, there's nothing you can really do to fix that truly. The wood's gone, you can't put it back. So I end up having to compromise and remove a little bit more, remove a little bit less wood rather from the inside of that line as I come and carve these small crescent shapes. I can kind of move those in tighter to remove less of the uncarved ring. So I'm kind of borrowing wood that was supposed to be carved, and I can leave it uncarved to balance out the outer parts here where I took too much. So you can see just how small these little things are. Like I said, despite how simple they are, they're still a bit of a challenge, and I really like this design for that reason, that it's got such a variety of chip shapes and sizes. We got some just straight lines in here. I've got positive circles, got the teardrop, these really big kind of more normal chip shapes, and then this irregular outline here. So it's got a lot going on, and a nice thing for me, I'm not the best at coming up with designs, is I didn't have to. Whoever designed that stained glass window came up with it, and I'm just able to convert that into an outline for carving and then do my best to follow it up. This might not be the best size of project given what it produces here with these tiny chips. Maybe a trivet or a small plate or something would be more appropriate to not have to deal with something this small, but it makes kind of a unique look with just these absolutely tiny chips. Nice detail. Once I stain it, they don't stand out too much right now just because they're so small, they don't cast much of a shadow, but once I stain it, it'll fill in there and they'll be a lot more obvious. So yeah, just wanted to kind of share what it looks like for me working on such small chips.